This is the Between Two Firms podcast, episode 5.
Like, wait a minute. Let's reframe this just one second.
These are good problems to have.
And what we can do with money to help our family over generations.
And working towards my entire career, when I decided, you know what, I think I need to do my own thing.
And I'm like, awesome.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Nick Kobos, host of the Between Two Firms podcast, and I'm joined by our showrunner, Matt Nomchik. Matt, how's it going, dude?
It's going well. Just getting ready for the holidays. How are you doing?
I'm also getting ready for the holidays. Today's Monday, December 22nd, and we've got at least I've got a day and 4 calls between me and zonking out for or clocking out for the holidays. What you have any major hurdles left between now and Christmas?
Not any major hurdles. There's some stuff that I'd like to get done before I leave, but
this QuickBooks payroll fiasco, is that one of them?
Yeah, I got a few things in Gusto to work on, and then just the regular bookkeeping stuff. Gusto's our payroll provider of choice, if we haven't mentioned that before, because we mostly born out of a intense hatred for QuickBooks payroll.
I don't know if that'll become a theme or not, but God, dude, if I had to list out, hate's a strong word, but I really hate QuickBooks Online Payroll. I mean, if I had to list out things that I do not like, QuickBooks Online Payroll would be towards the top. It'd probably be like Nazis, QuickBooks Online Payroll, terrorism, somewhere, or like maybe some variation. But QuickBooks Online Payroll would be
right ahead of terrorism. Huh?
I mean, I think so. I guess it depends, but
yeah, I don't think that we've talked about it before, but just the fact that QuickBooks doesn't offer a payroll service that's fully functional, for one, and then 2, that integrates well into their bookkeeping service, which we use
own ledger,
mostly without complaint, the bookkeeping stuff. But the fact that the payroll doesn't work well and is its own sort of poorly integrated thing, it's kind of confounding.
It is a little confounding, but anyway, Matt's got a client who somehow the QuickBooks payroll got decoupled from the QuickBooks, ledger accounts. So it's like 2 separate accounts, and of course, Intuit's support is just utterly useless, and we're having to do a lot a manual fixes.
Yeah, you had some problems with them on the tax side not too long ago.
Oh my God,
well.
Yeah, dude. I don't know if we
with the payroll taxes.
With the payroll. Yeah. I don't know if we talked about it on the last call.
I don't think so.
Or on the last intro. But yeah, dude, I got a client that had an issue with QuickBooks payroll where QuickBooks payroll stopped doing their withholdings. And
which they commonly do.
Yeah, which is not the first time we've encountered this among our clients. But yeah, so client comes to us, we look at their payroll, and we're like, there have been no payroll taxes withheld for like a year. And so we're trying to fix this for this new client, and it's about $400,000, somewhere in that ballpark, over 6 figures, well over 6 figures of payroll taxes that were just not withheld by QuickBooks payroll. And we call QuickBooks payroll, and we're trying to sort this out. And QuickBooks payroll's, well, we sent you a push notification in the portal, or like a automated email, and I'm like, my brother in Christ, we are talking about, a house here.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of thousands.
Fairly significant sum of money.
Yeah, I just don't get it. And I mean, obviously there are some systemic issues, and the client's ultimately responsible, but God, one of many negative interactions with QuickBooks payroll. But anyway, dude, the primary point the primary point of this of the show is not to land bad QuickBooks payroll. That might be
not the QuickBooks payroll.
a side quest. Maybe that's a side quest on our journey. But no, dude, I'm looking forward to Christmas. I'm looking forward to a couple days.
Are you gonna stop working?
I am. I plan to. At least Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I might do a little bit on Friday, just from the laptop. But no serious work. Got a couple tax returns I want to sneak in right before the the IRS e-file system goes under maintenance or shuts down. But yeah, not really. I mean, what do you are you working Friday?
Like I said, in the meeting this morning, I might do some work, but I'm not gonna be in the office alone.
Lazy. Fair enough. Well, today we had a great show. We had Ryan Elblein on the show, and Ryan is a CPA from Connecticut, runs a solo firm. We spent most of the interview talking about his tax processes, but he does bookkeeping as well. And cool guy, cool business, and just had a great time chatting with Ryan. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good interview, and hopefully you guys enjoy. I think I talked about this on the last opening we did, but dude, the recurring theme for me is just how many folks are out here doing this. Everybody we talk to talks about how their primary motivator, more than the income potential, is the flexibility, and I just think it's so cool. I mean, it's so cool to see just how different people have their businesses structured, and how folks are able to make real amounts of, like, very real money, and still make their firms fit their lifestyle, and have control of their time in a way they wouldn't, working the traditional W-2.
Yeah, you really briefly touched on it when you talked to Ryan, but I think it's just a mixture of the industry and the time that we're in right now, where there's enough technology, and it just has to facilitate, a remote relationship with a client, and complete basically everything they need virtually. So there's really no reason why you would need to, aside from, like, a 9 to 5 just employer restriction, kind of come in and work the traditional schedule, and that's what everybody's been taking advantage of.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think we are at a uniquely good time. I'm very optimistic about the time we are currently in, at least from an accounting perspective. Or the state of, the opportunity that exists for small firm owners and independent operators, like us and like the folks we've interviewed thus far.
And he was kind of thinking about that as well with his client selection, opting for the trades versus other industries. I don't think it was necessarily his primary motivation. He kind of talked about a few other things, but how the trades specifically, at least right now, seem like they'll be more resistant to AI. But robotics is coming along as well. Well, we'll see. I think it probably is a longer time horizon.
No, I agree. And I mean, eventually the AI overlords will rule us all. But in the meantime, I'm with him that I think the trades are somewhat insulated. But yeah, all in all, super cool guy, super cool business. Had a lot of fun talking to Ryan and kind of learning about his processes and how he does things. Without giving too much, he runs his whole business off TaxDome, and I've used TaxDome. My previous accountant in another life, my accountant used TaxDome, so I've used it as a customer, as a client, but I've not used it as a firm runner. And I've only heard good things about TaxDome. That seems to be one that, especially the more tax heavy folks, it's in the name. But
I think he's a sole proprietor, Um, the only member of his firm at the moment. And so I'm not sure. He said he's kind of doing the time tracking stuff, but like once you get a bunch of people involved, I think the project management side of it and like the time tracking, uh, it's probably a limitation from what he said. I also don't have experience in it, but it sounded like, um, we use Financial Sense, and that right now seems kind of more of a robust project management solution.
I don't know. I'd be curious. Because you're right. I don't know. I'd be curious to know what how Taxstone works out for folks that with a little bit more headcount. So yeah, if you're listening and your firm runs on Taxstone and you've got a couple employees or you're a bigger headcount firm, we'd love to chat with you. I'm very curious about Taxstone. But yeah, all in all, great conversation with Ryan. I think yeah, I think without further ado, I think we just jump into it. Here we are with our guest today, Ryan Elblein. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have you on. We were chatting about it right here before we started. I saw you are a member of the Tax Pros Discord, and I think, are you an admin or?
Yeah. I think the official title is recruiter now, but yeah, it's
recruiter. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, I've gotten so much value from that Discord. It's insane. That Discord is an absolute gold mine, and very grateful to be on it. So when I saw it, I was super excited to have you on. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. It's crazy how fast it's grown too. I mean, it started, I think I was member like 40 or something like that a few years ago, and now it's up to like, I don't know, 1,200 members or something like that.
Oh my God. Yeah. What year did you guys start it? Or what year did it start?
I think it was 2021.
Okay.
Probably like mid-year 21, I think, something like that.
Okay, yeah, it is pretty crazy growth. Like I said, it's a gold mine, and I'm guessing you're in Realize, maybe some of the other community. Yeah, and
yeah.
I think we'll talk about it more, but I think there's definitely, it's definitely different. Like I go to the Discord for different things than I go to Realize for, but I get as much or more value, I would say, from the Discord as a lot of the paid communities. So it's an absolute gem of a resource.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I find it's more of like a real time thing. Like if you have an issue you're trying to figure out like in real time, that's the place to go because you're going to get quick responses from people. Right. If you've got something a little more, needs some research or needs some time to figure out, that's where like the Realizes or the counters or the whatever else come into the play.
No, for sure. For sure. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the communities here in a second. But before we really get into the interview, I'd like to start by just kind of asking you how did you get into accounting, and then from accounting, how did you get into running your own firm? Like, what was kind of your journey into firm running?
Yeah, I guess I kind of fell into it. I guess when I was in high school, the high school I went to had a bunch of business classes, and I took all the business classes they offered. And you'd think that would mean I'd go to college for business, and for whatever reason, I woke up one day and said, I want to be a state trooper or a cop or something like that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school for criminal justice instead. Ended up going to a school in Connecticut called University of New Haven, great criminal justice school. My sophomore year, I was minoring in accounting, majoring in criminal justice. My sophomore year, my accounting professor, I think it was like one of the first 2 accounting classes, right? And he's like, why are you a criminal justice major? He's like, you're good at this stuff. Why are you doing that? And I was like, oh, I want to be a cop. He goes, well, you can do that like without actually becoming a criminal justice major, right? Sure. You can do that with something else. And so I went and did the research. I talked to the professors at the school, and they were all like, hey, yeah, if you want to do this stuff, like even if you go FBI, like they hire CPAs as a hiring track for the FBI if you want to go into like big law enforcement. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll try it out. I'll go to accounting. And then one thing led to another. The school was really big on like learning on the job, so that they get you into these internships and stuff. I interned with Markham in New Haven as a junior, and after that internship during tax season, they offered me a job for when I graduated. Which how do you say no to that? You're a junior in college, and they're saying, hey, you guaranteed job when you graduate, right? Did that, got into public accounting, worked for them for like 4 years or so. Mm-hmm. Left them to go into Cohn Resnick, which is another firm that they had an office up in Hartford, up here in Connecticut. Worked in their kind of real estate department, I guess, a little bit. left there about 9 months in to go be a controller for a real estate developer. So one of my old
Okay.
friends from Markham had left to go work for this guy, and I worked for him. Guy was like, your stereotypical real estate developer, right? All the things you hear about real estate developers, great at making deals, great at, building awesome buildings. But when it came to, actually doing things like buy the book, like an accountant wants to do things, it's more so like, hey, here's what I did, now fix it.
Yeah.
Not so much like, let's plan out and do it the right way.
Right.
So after working for that real estate developer for a few years, I realized, it wasn't going to be for me the entire time. I wanted to go kind of do my own thing. And, I didn't want to go back working for a big firm. They were great and all, but like I said, kind of a grind, just a lot of work to get, anywhere in those big firms. And it takes 10, 15 years to even make it to partner. And, glad I kind of did what I did, because now they're all selling to PE anyways, and partnership's not really a thing anymore. So I decided to open up my own shop, but I grew it completely from scratch. So started with, I think my first client was my wife's coworker's boyfriend. Made a bunch of money during COVID, and just needed an accountant. So started from literally nothing. And the hard thing, I guess, about going from private industry into starting your own tax firm is that you don't have those relationships, right? So it's not like I already had relationships with clients or with financial advisors and vendors and things like that I would have had at any other public accounting firm. You really start from nothing, and you really got to get out there and build a name for yourself, build some word of mouth. Either in my case, I went through a BNI group, and I did a lot of business through there. That really helped me. But you've got to do something to get your name out there and build up those relationships again, because chances are, if you're in private industry, you don't have the kind of relationships you need to build your own firm.
Right. Right. Yeah. And how long were you side hustling before it got to the point where you were ready to go full time?
Yeah, so I side hustled for 2 years. So I started it, January of 21. In 2022, Cone Resnick had reached out to me. One of the partners there reached out to me and wanted me to come back and work for them. And I was like, well, I started my own thing. I'm not coming back. But if you guys need help, because this is during a time there wasn't enough people to do the work, I'm like, if you guys need help, I'll contract for you. Like, you can pay me by the hour, and I'll do some work for you. So like 2022-ish, they took me on as a contractor for working on one of the real estate groups I used to work on when I was there. And by the end of 22, I was like, all right, I'm getting to the point where now it's, I work all day at my day job, then I work all night. In 22, I had my first kid. So, things were getting busy. And I'm like, I can't do this forever. I'm just burning the candle at all ends here. And I reached out to Cone Resnick, and I was like, hey, if you guys need more work, like, how many hours could you give me? And they literally told me, whatever you want, we'll give you as many hours as you want to take, we'll give you. And I'm like, okay, if you seriously mean that, like, I'll take more. And it gave me enough where January of 23, I could say, you know what, I'm done with the day job. I've got kind of a cushion here with the contract work that they're giving me. And I can use my other free time now to go out and grow this business.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I mean, by the end of 23, I did a ton of work for them in 23, 24. That sort of dialed down a little bit. They had lost one of the big clients I was on, or it went to a different office or something like that. So it kind of dwindled down. And then for 25, we were like, you know what, let's just do our own thing. Typical public accounting type thing. There's a lot of red tape to get through when you're a contractor, trying to get approved beyond clicking clients and stuff like that. So, so we kind of cut ties for 2025's tax season, which was fine. And, my revenue's still been going up, so it's not like I missed it at all. A little nerve-wracking, I guess, but it's not like it made a big dent, so.
Sure. And that's so cool, and I think that's so smart, to take the subcontract work. Because it gives you a little bit more runway, or I can imagine that it probably gave you a little bit more runway versus having to build the book from zero today.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. If you don't mind me asking, out of curiosity, when you were subcontracting for your former employer, was your compensation per hour? Did it go up, down, or stay roughly the same?
I mean, I'll tell you, it was $100 an hour is where I was getting paid.
Okay.
The type of work I was doing, as a contractor, it was $100 an hour. The type of work I was doing was, it was more so like heavy senior kind of work is what they would call it. A lot of like review. Not really prep, but more review of things. Some of this stuff kind of got a little more managerial. I had to sometimes manage employees and help figure out who's doing what. But that's the type of work I was doing. It was $100 an hour. The tough thing about working with a big firm like that as a contractor, though, is how they pay people, like the frequency in which they pay people when they're contractors. So the deal breaker there was a 45-day payment process. So I submit an invoice and it takes 45 days to get paid.
Gotcha.
So, that was kind of their big deal breaker was that's how we pay people. That's just what we're going to pay you on. And we can't change that.
Right. So when you started, you had like a month and a half, you had to float.
Yeah. So you start doing all this work and you got to kind of carry yourself for a little bit before the money actually starts coming in.
Sure. No, but I still think, I think that's a great kind of lesson or like just an opportunity because there's a lot of folks that that are working in public accounting that don't like it or want to go out and do their own thing for whatever reason, and yeah, just they kind of thought that you don't have to build a book from scratch overnight necessarily, right? Like that is an option. And I worked at an accounting firm in Anchorage last tax season part-time, kind of doing the same thing. And I don't know, obviously we have an N of 2 here, right? So we have a sample size of 2, but the firm I was at was also very open to that kind of thing. And I think it's I don't know, right? But I would imagine, I think it's just a byproduct of the fact that it's hard to find accountants. And so individual accountants or practitioners, I feel like we just have more leverage than maybe you would have had in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, just from my experience of listening to people talk and seeing what people are posting about, I think a lot of firms are open, of all sizes, are open to contract work. I mean, from the contractor side, it's good work for you. You can consistent work. You can probably set your own hours, figure out how many hours you want to work, and use the rest to grow a business if you want to, do your own thing. And then from the business standpoint, I mean, they need people to do this work, right? And, they get the work done. It's done by people that know what they're doing. Depending on the size you're going to work for, you may not get paid, the $100 an hour I was getting paid for it, but you can find firms of like all sizes looking for people to do contract work. So
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even in the communities we were talking about earlier, I see posts all the time of people looking, both offering contract work and looking for contract work. So I think that those opportunities are definitely out there.
for sure.
Yeah, it's very cool. So starting this past tax season, in the tax year 2024, 2025 tax season was your first season fully on your own. Well, not already on your own, but without the contract work. Just
right. Yeah. No contract work or anything. Yeah.
Okay. And your service mix, is it primarily tax, or what kind of percentage of your work is tax versus bookkeeping or accounting services?
Yeah. So funny enough, I just filled out my insurance renewal and they make you put that on there. So I'm about like 30%, give or take, is bookkeeping work or accounting services kind of work. The remainder of it is some form of tax for the most part. I do have some like small subset of income from like presentation type stuff or like tax dome consulting or whatever. So that's some portion of it. But 65-ish probably percent is tax related. The other 30% is accounting services or bookkeeping, and then a small 5% of like excess things.
Gotcha. And you're a sole practitioner, right? And you're okay. Why do you offer both? Are they roughly similar returns on your time, or is one way more profitable than the other? Or kind of what's the logic there?
Yeah, so the reason when I first started, it was all pretty much tax. When I first started doing it, I didn't do really any bookkeeping outside of like my brother-in-law, which I do for free. But or I guess I do for trade services because he does electrical work in my house. But anyways,
gotcha.
Why I started doing the bookkeeping is, first of all, from working as the real estate developer's controller, I learned kind of that, inside, right? I already kind of knew how to use QuickBooks, obviously, but I really learned the ins and outs of keeping track of books and making sure things are in order, right? And what I found is a lot of the clients that I worked with, I had to either make a ton of adjustments to it to get to a tax return, or just their books were just not in good shape. Whether they had a bookkeeper or didn't have a bookkeeper, they just were not in a good shape to make doing a tax return easy, or to even make like understanding the financials for them easy, right? And so I said, you know what? I know how to do this stuff. And I know that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it a certain way to a certain standard that I know is correct and is going to be good for the client. And so I can just offer that as a service too, to the same people that I'm doing tax work for. And now they've got, one point of contact, one place to go. And there's people on both sides of the coin. I've heard arguments of like, oh, well, you should never have the same person for your books as you do for your taxes. And, but there's also something to be said for one place to go and one person has access to everything. And, not only am I now doing the books to keep those up to date, but I can see what's going on throughout the year. So if I see, hey, your income is like double what it's been in the past, let's figure something out for taxes now because, we know you're going to have a lot more tax. Or, hey, you know what? Don't make that fourth quarter payment because I can see your income's way down. You're already paid in 3 quarters. Let's not pay quarter 4. And that's something I can do on the fly as opposed to like, hey, let's get the bookkeeper up to speed. Let's make sure your books are reconciled. Let's make sure we can actually do some planning. Now I can do it on the fly as I'm looking through your books to get your bookkeeping done.
No, of course. And that's so true. We do the same thing. So we do books. We do books and tax. We were kind of the opposite from what you've described, where we started with books and then realized like we should probably start doing tax. So many of our bookkeeping clients wanted help on the tax side, but same thing. Now we do both. And I'm with you. The value you're able to provide to the client by it all being in one place. There's just less latency, like you said. There's not 3 points of contact. It's just direct to the client. I think that definitely has a lot of value. Do you find that clients will pay more for the same services if they're bundled, or how do you approach that? Because that's something. Yeah, how do you approach quoting clients or pricing clients who are going to have you doing accounting services and tax?
Yeah, so I've been flexible kind of how I do it. I have some people that, I'll keep the tax billing separate where it's, you're billed, once a year for your tax work and you're billed monthly for your accounting work. I have other people where I kind of just throw it all together. They just want, one price every month, whatever. And I'll throw it all into one package. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes it easier to add value. So it's easier to kind of get a higher price point by doing that because now not only am I controlling, the tax stuff and making sure you're good there, but now I've got all the information throughout the year to make sure you have a better tax result. So it's easier. Like if I'm saying, hey, I'm going to take over your bookkeeping and we're going to keep it all in one place. Well, now we can also tack on tax planning pretty easily because I'm already doing all this work anyways. You might as well pay me to do a projection in November or something like that with the work we're already doing. So,
no, of course.
It gets easier to kind of add that value to the client when you are putting it all in one place as opposed to keeping it all different places.
Of course. And just from a tech stack, or just out of curiosity, how do you do your billing? Are you using like an Anchor or an Ignition or one of those?
No, so I use TaxStone as my practice management software. And I do all my billing through TaxStone. So, engagement letters, invoices, all that stuff's done through there.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. We'll circle back to the tech stack to the tech stack. 'Cause I've got a couple questions. I've got a couple questions there. But as far as finding new clients, you mentioned that when you started, you were primarily getting new clients through BNI. Okay. Do you still do BNI?
Yeah. I'm actually the vice president of my group this year.
Right on. Yeah, I did a little bit of BNI myself in the past, and I found it was very group dependent. And I don't know, can you kind of tell me a little bit about your experience with BNI and maybe some best practices of how you've been able to leverage it to kind of build the client base?
Yeah, so, and that's something I tell people all the time, whether it's in the Discord group or on any of the channels, even Facebook and stuff, about how it works, because BNI gets a bad rap, I think, a lot, because people get stuck in these groups that just are not good groups. And it's hard to get anything out of that if you're in a group that's not going to work for you, right? So, the things that benefited me, the group that I joined is a group that COVID kind of had some turnover, but, they've had anywhere from 30 to 50 members, on average. Right now, we've been sitting like mid-30s is pretty consistent. But they hadn't had a CPA for 2 years. And by not have a CPA, they didn't have any accounting slot, no tax slot, accounting, bookkeeping, nothing for 2 years before I joined. And we're talking about a group that's housed in New Haven, Connecticut. Like they're a New Haven group, and you would think with all the firms, you could throw a stone and hit 10 firms. You would think they'd have an accountant there, and they didn't. And so when I visited, I mean, people were hungry to talk to a CPA, right? They wanted I got people that, looking for tax or looking for this, looking for that.
Right.
So for me, it ended up being a choice between two groups. There was one group that was just starting up, and the way BNI works is when a group is just starting up, you have to hit a certain number of members before you can even meet. Um, or it was that group or join the group that I did join, which had 30 something members in it. And the price is the same regardless of which one you join. So I'm like, no
Right.
brainer. 30-person
Sure.
groups for me. Um, it took a little bit I've always kind of been into networking. I had a networking coach at one point. So I kind of knew my way around things, but it took a little bit of work in the group to sort of get people to trust me and whatever. And then when it really started to grow for me is one of the people in the group, their accountant passed away
Hmm.
unexpectedly. And obviously that put him in an issue where he needs somebody now. Um, and so he came to me and I took it on and that one client's return paid for my whole BNI membership for the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, at that point I'm going for free, right? I'm getting paid essentially to go to these meetings.
Right.
And after that, it kind of spirals, right? Do some good work for somebody. They give a testimonial for you. Now people see like, all right, somebody tested him out. He actually knows what he's talking about, whatever. Um, and from there, it just kind of snowballs. Somebody else gives you another client and you do well with that. And then they give you a testimonial. And then, next thing you know, the way my group kind of worked in the past is the day you would present. Every now and again, you get to present. The day you would present is
Hmm.
kind of when everybody would give you testimonials. So it gets to the point that, you're presenting and then you're getting like 5 or 6 testimonials and it's showing the room that like, hey, you know what you're talking about. People
Right.
trust working with you. Um, and I've been there. I want to say I joined at the end of end of 22 maybe.
Okay.
Um, and maybe end of 21. I can't remember off the top of my head, but since then I've done like hundred and something thousand dollars in business from BNI, which
Right.
is huge for
So
somebody starting
what's
from
your annual
scratch.
fee? $800 a year is the annual fee.
Yeah, it's up to like 1,000 now or something like that.
Okay,
Plus like
sounds good.
some, but yeah, it's
But
I
right, that's
paid
what
probably
that's what.
5 grand or less.
Right, right, and then yeah, and generate all that business. No, I completely agree. Um especially I see in some of the communities, I see folks who are just starting out and uh like obsessed about like social media stuff and marketing and how should I do and I'm with you is like I'm the kind of person where like social media like that stuff doesn't come naturally to me. It's much easier for me to just go talk to people.
Yeah,
And I think the BNI is very is kind of low hanging fruit as like an opportunity to go out and talk to people. And even I don't do it anymore. Um but to your point, just starting out, it was a great way to kind of get the foot in the door and build the initial network because then everybody in BNI we're friends on Facebook and so then we get a lot of leads from like local Facebook groups. Oh, does anybody have an accountant recommendation? And you got 6 people from your old BNI group that all are tagging you, right? And
yeah.
so um yeah, I think it's a great tool for folks starting out to build a network, or I mean, as you've said, right, to continue to build once you have an established client base. That's super cool.
Well, and I think it can be quicker than social media too. Like I've done some social
Yeah,
media content. I've done videos and stuff like that. Not nearly as much as I should, but in
mhm,
social media, you've got to build a following. You've got to get
right,
steam. Now you
right,
need to get these people to trust you, and you've got to have a place
right,
for them to go, a website or a newsletter, or somewhere for them to find you.
right.
Whereas in a BNI group, as long as you have a good group that's got the kind of people in it that you want to connect with,
Sure.
um, it's a little bit quicker, right? Because you want to
No, I
connect with these
completely
people,
agree.
and I think that's another thing people forget too is like you can see who's in a group before you join. Make
Yeah,
sure it's people you want to connect with. I mean, there's groups that are all MLMs, right? The multi-level marketing people, and
sure.
like if that's not your jam, don't join that group. My
Right.
group is luckily, it's a lot of people relative to like trade professionals. So I try to work with trade
Yeah.
professionals now. I mean, we've got realtor, we've got, a marketer who deals with trade professionals specifically. We've got, HR guys who love to deal with trade professionals. So it's like people that connect with the people I want to be talking to are already in the
Hmm.
group.
Right.
But if that's not your thing, trade professionals not your thing, my group may
I
not
would
be the
agree.
best group for you.
Of course, of course. Yeah, well, that brings up another great point. You mentioned that you're starting to shift towards trying to target or work specifically with trade professionals.
Mhm.
Is that a byproduct of just kind of the natural client base you've built through BNI, or what's the thought process behind moving to the trades?
So yeah, kind of, sort of. When I started doing this, I was more focused on the real estate side of things because that's where most of my experience has been in.
Okay.
Um, But personally, I feel when it comes to like tax and stuff, I think the real estate industry is kind of saturated, at least from what I've seen, for
Okay.
real estate tax and real estate accounting. I mean, you've got some fantastic people out there that I follow. You got the Brandon Halls of the world, the
Sure.
Natalie Colodige. You've got um, the guy Ryan Backey, I think, is another one. So like, you've got a lot of
Yeah.
great people out there that do real estate stuff, and they're out there for real estate. And I think, that's great, but I don't see that for trades. I don't see
Yeah.
the same thing for trades. And yeah, maybe the trades aren't as like specialized, or there's not as many differences for trades as there is for real estate, right? Like, cost segs and stuff like that, and 1031s and real estate professionals. Sure, there's a lot of things for real estate, but the trade businesses, if you think about it, are probably one of the only businesses where AI is really not going to impact that much. At least not until we get humanoid robots that can go
Yeah,
fix,
until the
your
robotics
plumbing.
catch up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like, so think about it, like someone's always gonna have to be working with their hands. They gotta come in and
Yep.
fix the plumbing. They gotta come in and build the house.
Yep.
Um, Other things can be automated, whereas that's not something you can really automate until there's a robot to do it for us. And a lot of these trade businesses, and I know because my brother's an electrician, and I had some clients come in that were plumbers and electricians and whatnot. But they're really, really busy, and they don't
Yeah.
have the time to sit
Yeah.
there and go through their books and do their accounting and do their invoicing and do their taxes. So they need somebody that knows how to do all that, that's willing to just take it over. I mean, I had a guy call me the other day who's a client of mine for taxes, and he's like, "Listen, I'm behind on sales taxes. I'm behind on my bookkeeping. I don't care what it costs. Just do it." I'm like,
Right.
"Okay, I'll do it for you."
Right. No, 100%. And we also have started targeting kind of, we call it home service business, but yeah, the
Yeah,
trades,
same thing.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And we love them because I mean, I love them for a couple reasons. But to your point, I think the accounting is relatively straightforward. There's typically not like inventory and right, like you said, a lot of the complexities of maybe real estate, right? It's usually pretty straightforward stuff. They're busy. They're always busy. Like like to a T. They're always busy. They're always
Mhm.
slammed. Um and I'm prior army, so like to me, a lot of these guys, I'm not a tradesperson, but I can kind of speak the language of like dudes and trucks and equipment, and I kind of understand their operations. And we just kind of naturally gravitate towards them. How do you, I guess, outside of BNI, do you do anything specific to kind of bring them into your network, or is it just kind of a natural byproduct of the composition of your BNI group and your
yeah.
relationships?
So far it's been mostly through BNI. It's something for 26 is going to be sort of trying to figure out how to get them in aside from BNI. Because I think at this point I've
Sure,
kind of like tapped most of the network through BNI that I'm going to get for
sure.
clients, unless things pop up. I'm sure new things will, but I've been there enough years saying I'm working with trade businesses that I think at this point the people that are looking I probably have come across.
Yeah,
Um, so for 26, the stuff that I'm going to be working on is obviously more social media content.
yeah.
I start up a newsletter. It's like a monthly newsletter. I
Hmm.
call it the monthly blueprint. Just a little, kind of tradesy.
Sure.
But basically just a way to help get them some basic information that they need, help them understand things about their taxes or accounting that they need to understand. And then I'm going to work on trying to find, local, conventions or conferences, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Try to get in there. I actually just started working with a wealth management company who
Okay.
um, I don't necessarily offer wealth management through me, but like I can kind of partner up with them.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they offer is they actually offer like a booth kit, so they can help me get like a marketing booth kit for myself, so I can go to these
Gotcha.
events and market my services. So that's kind of the 2026 goal, is to try to get to
Mhm.
some conferences and do some marketing that way, and see if that maybe helps bring more of the trade businesses in.
Gotcha. And are you specifically targeting trade businesses in Connecticut, or are you just geographic agnostic?
I mean, pretty much geographic agnostic. I can work with anybody anywhere,
Yeah.
as long as obviously as long as a CPA license allows. I think technically like Hawaii we can't or something like that, but
Gotcha.
that's fine with me. But yeah, I mean, mainly I do a lot of the more local stuff to get local people.
Right.
But I have clients that live in California and Oregon and whatever else. So
Right. Yeah, so you're doing some of those gross returns. Cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm with you on the trade thing. I you mentioned the newsletter. how are you doing the email newsletter? Because that's something I'm definitely curious about. Are you using a specific platform for that?
Yeah, so I just started. My first one was November. I did December. Now I got to put together
Okay.
the January one. I'm using Beehive to do it.
Beehive. Okay.
So yeah, Beehive, Beehive, I believe is how they spell it.
Okay.
Um, it's pretty good. It's pretty easy to set up and get going. You kind of get like a little website with it too. So I've got to figure out how to integrate that with my actual website so that I can have people sign up. But it's fairly simple to use. You can embed video in it, which is what I do. Use Canva to draw up some of the graphics, and you can easily put those into it. And that's pretty much how I've done it. And now, the hard part for me is coming up with the content to put in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
November, I think I did like a tax planning one, which was like, hey, now's the time, let's get some tax planning in. Here's why it's important. Here's how to do it. December was more like prepping for tax season. What do you need to know for 1099s? What do you need to know for getting your returns done? That kind of thing. And now for January, I think it's going to be, a little bit of that to help kind of keep that thought going. But then also, I've had some client conversations and stuff I might pull from where it's like, people don't understand 1099s or they, I got a lot of questions recently about LLCs and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to go into that a little bit. But that's the hardest part is coming up with the actual content, sitting down and figuring out what am I going to talk about and then filming a video and actually writing it all up.
Sure. And right now you're doing all of that. So you're putting the newsletter together, you're doing the graphics, you do the whole thing, or do you contract anybody to help you with that?
Nope, it's all me.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I'm with you on the social media. I mean, not specifically to the newsletter, but whenever we're doing social media stuff, the content for me is the tricky part. And one thing that we've started doing that's been super helpful. So I've got a teammate, Marissa, who does a lot of our admin work, and she's been managing our social media. And what we started doing is we ran into this disconnect where she's great at coming up with content and making it look nice and professional, but she doesn't know the tax and she doesn't know the accounting. And so then she'll say things that like, that doesn't really make sense, right? So what we started doing is I take all my client calls, all my client transcripts, and this is not novel, right? This is, I think Jason Stats talks about this all the time, but
yeah,
we run all of our transcripts through Fireflies.
Okay.
I don't know if do you use an AI note taker?
Yeah, I use Fathom.
Okay, yeah. So we take all those transcripts and run them into Fireflies, and then from there, I usually will just take once a week. I'll take a couple of the key calls from the previous week, pull the transcripts, and then have it pick a topic that was discussed, right? And then obviously you anonymize it and everything.
Yeah,
but that's been for me, that's been great. It's just kind of a forcing function to like make me pick a damn topic, because otherwise I'll sit there and like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff that ends up being good content, and I'm trying to train myself to think about this or to reset how I think about this, but a lot of the stuff that ends up being good content, I hesitate to make content about because I'm like, it's so easy, or like it seems like the stuff that's on like you like 1099s. It seems like stuff you could just Google, but but that's what all my clients ask me about, and so that's very cool that you started doing the newsletter, and that's something we're trying to get to as a kind of shift. I think we can probably repurpose a lot of our social just into the newsletter, but I haven't actually done it yet. So.
Well, and on the content thing too, like one of the things I struggle with is, you see the people that are successful in doing accounting or tax content, right? And by successful in doing the content, I mean, have a lot of followers. And if you look at these people that have a lot of followers, a lot of the stuff they say is just terrible.
It's just baloney.
It's misleading, or like, yes, maybe what they said is factual, but it only applies to a small subset of people, or you've got to do all this work to do it. Yeah, like, people are always like, oh,
there's the Carlton guy I see all the time. Yeah,
he's one of them. There's another a guy named Cofield CPA. He's one. I think he's gotten a little bit better recently, but like he was one that was like, oh, put your name in the inside of your suit jacket and write it off, or put your whole family as the as board members of the LLC, every dinner and
I'm
vacation you
visiting
go
them.
to is
Yeah,
like,
this one simple trick. Yeah.
yeah, so it's stuff like that. And like, yeah, okay, cool. That gets a lot of views. It gets a lot of followers because like, oh, I can put my
Right.
whole family on the board and write everything off. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, sure. Maybe if you follow all of these rules and do
Right.
all of these specific things, maybe you could do that.
Right.
But, for the average business owner, that's not going to work.
Right. Right. No, I totally agree. And that's something that we're constantly, I feel like especially this time of year, I'm constantly reiterating that to clients of like, just because you saw it on a short, if you
Right.
saw it on a short, it's probably like just proceed with caution. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Who Jasmine DeLucci, I don't know if you've seen any of her stuff. I love her stuff. I recommend you check her out.
Yeah.
She makes some pretty good tax content. I think I see her primarily on YouTube, and
Okay.
she'll like debunk a lot of those guys. But yeah, some of that stuff that you see, and it's got like millions of views, and you're like, how is this allowed?
Right.
It's like blatantly false. It's like,
Yeah.
but yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, the newsletter thing is something we definitely want to do. Just out of curiosity, I mean, I know you said you've only been doing it a few months. How did you set up a call to action in the newsletter, or are you just getting a battle rhythm going?
Yeah, so in the newsletter, I have kind of at the bottom is sort of like a little call to action of like, if you want to check out more about us, here's a link to my website kind of thing. But the first couple of months was really about like, can I do this? Can I make it work? Does the format work? Does it look okay? How much time does it take to do it? And now once we get into 2026, I'm going to push it on. Like I just started out with, people that said they wanted to get the newsletter, right?
Sure.
I think starting with 26, I'm going to start pushing it, for all my clients. I'm not going to just sign them up, but, put it out there and say, hey, here's what I've got going for you guys. If you want it, sign up for this. And then start maybe as I do social media content, like putting out, the newsletter as a link. Like I tried,
Right.
I made a trade business landing page for my website that you can't access unless you have the link.
Gotcha.
And I basically, for content towards the end of the year, I started putting that as like the call to action is click this to get, look at my trade business, content or how we work with trade businesses or whatever.
That makes sense.
And I think I'll switch that now from, click this landing page to now, check out the newsletter. And then have maybe the newsletter lead them to the landing page if they want to go to it.
Gotcha. And I think that brings up another great point. So as you kind of think through new clients, right? Like if you don't mind, walk me through the process by which a new client approaches you, does whatever kind of your discovery process looks like, and then signs an engagement letter. Like what's the flow?
Yeah.
How do you have that designed?
So, I mean, in a perfect world, they're going through my intake form on my website. I have a Cognito Forms linked in. They just click that and they can fill it out within the website. They don't have to like leave it.
And that's for everybody. That's for tax or bookkeeping. That's just any client. You have a form on the website that's step one.
Yeah. In a perfect world,
Okay.
they fill that out. Does everyone fill that out? No.
Sure.
Do people give people my phone number and say, hey, call them? Yeah, and they call me. So that doesn't always happen, but in a perfect world,
course.
they would fill that out. Because that would give me then like a list of people and a way to kind of follow through who's reached out.
Right.
From there, after I look at that, some of the questions there are kind of like non-starters for me. If they say they have foreign assets and stuff like that, like I just won't. I've had too many trouble with people with foreign assets. I'm not dealing with it anymore. So stuff like that, I'll just be like, hey, not the person for you. If they seem like a good client, I'll reach out. And there's a button on that form to upload to TaxDome your prior year returns. A lot of people don't do that necessarily at that stage. So usually
the form links. If somebody uploads their prior year tax documents in the Cognito Forms, it links straight to TaxDome.
Yeah, there's a button there
That's
to click
cool.
to like upload your documents, and that takes you right to the TaxDome upload screen. So
I got you. Okay.
if people do that, then great. Sometimes they don't at that stage, but I'll look at it and I'll basically send them an email that's like, hey, would love to talk to you more. Here's a link if you haven't uploaded already for your prior year returns. And here's a link to my Calendly to, schedule a time that works for you.
Okay.
From there, they'll schedule the intro meeting, and then it's really just hopefully they've uploaded returns so I can kind of talk more about what they have going on and not, have to gather all the information.
Sure.
But it's like, basic intro call, learn about the client, learn what they're looking for, what didn't work with their past person, what's, did they retire? Did they die? Did they just not like them? What's going on? And then get a feel for what they're looking for and try to make sure that they're, sort of a good fit for us.
Yeah.
I've gotten a bad habit lately of taking on clients that like don't necessarily do things virtually. And it's great because like there's a lot of local firms here that either, they're getting old, they're retiring. I've had one that the guy died 2 days before tax season was like the 4/15 deadline. So like stuff like that, right? And I want to help these people, but I get in a bad habit of like just taking them on when they don't use tech. And now it's like I've got to deal with papers and collecting documents.
Yeah.
But after the intro call, if if they're a good fit and they've uploaded their docs, then it basically just becomes setting them up in TaxDome, and whenever the next round of doing tax returns is, that's when they're going to get their engagement letter, right? So if they signed up, anytime in the last few months for 2025, they'll get their engagement letter sometime the next couple of weeks through TaxDome, and then we'll just start prep.
Gotcha. Okay, so you quote them though at the time that they and so if somebody came to you, let's say in like September, you would have given them the quote in September, and then do you bill them, or does the billing happen once the engagement letter is signed during tax season?
Yeah, so I don't bill them at the time of giving them the quote. The way that I do it is when you get your engagement letter and sign your engagement letter, through TaxDome, it's automated where you'll get your invoice at that point. So once you sign the engagement letter, an invoice is created. But I don't require that they pay it until we're ready to sign the e-file authorizations. So what I basically did was a couple years ago, I was doing everything like the old way, whereas I bill them once I have 8879s ready, they sign those, and then I'll send them a bill, right? And I wanted to move things more up front, but I was kind of nervous about just saying, hey, you have to pay me when you sign this engagement letter, because I was afraid people were going to be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
You haven't done any work yet. So kind of as an experiment last tax season, I was like, all right, let me give them the invoice with the engagement letter, but tell them they don't have to pay until they sign the 8879, until they're ready to sign the 8879s, and see what happens, right? And the majority of my clients actually paid when they uploaded their documents.
Yeah.
Not like, so I kind of front loaded some more of that cash now, because they went in, they saw, oh, I'm uploading my documents, did my organizer, oh, hey, I have an invoice outstanding, let me just pay that. And so that really worked out. So that's kind of my new process, is how I'm doing it now. Is just they get the invoice with the engagement letter, and then we'll go in and, they can pay it anytime between then and right before they sign their e-file authorizations.
Yeah, we also started doing the bill up front, and same as you, I was last tax season did bill up front. Like halfway through the season, I was like, okay, new clients that come in are just going to get billed up front. And previous to that, we'd been doing, we've been doing 50% deposit and then 50% at the time of signing the 8879. And I was really nervous. I was like, certainly people are going to say, no, I'm not paying until it's done, right? I don't think we've had anybody. I genuinely don't think I've had a single person complain, and which just blew my mind. But yeah, I'm with you. Why not front load? Why not front load that cash? If you can, yeah. So no, okay, gotcha. So that all makes sense. And then TaxDome, I don't use TaxDome. Before I started doing this, my accountant at the time used TaxDome, so I'm kind of familiar with it from a client perspective.
Okay.
But your whole practice then is run through TaxDome.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I use it for pretty much everything.
Okay. Does it do? But because I saw you're using Stanford Tax for document intake, or do you manually move the documents from TaxDome into Stanford?
Yeah. So I still use TaxDome for the intake piece of it. I use Stanford because it helps me automate the work paper process and the checklist. So, me being a solo, the way I used to do things that took forever is they'd upload all the documents through TaxDome. I would use Adobe Combine to bring them all together.
Yeah, just make the big binder.
Yeah, and then I would have TickTie Calculate, where I'd go through and bookmark through that. And if you ever use TickTie Calculate to bookmark, it takes forever, and it's not an easy process. Like it's, you can't go and look at the documents as you're trying to bookmark. So I was probably spending, I don't know, half an hour on each one of these clients, just bookmarking and like getting things ready.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, when I heard about Stanford Tax, I'm like, let me check this out. And it's easy enough where I can use the Z drive through TaxDome. So you get like a drive on your computer that's just like any other, file drive you'd have on a PC. And once the clients upload their documents, I just drag those into Stanford Tax, It uses their AI to figure out, do they
Yep.
have everything on the checklist? Do they not have everything on the checklist? It creates that work paper file. It bookmarks it for me. So just by doing that change, I actually timed it last year, and it was, or this past tax season, and it was under 10 minutes on average per client, regardless of how many documents they had or how many PDFs there were.
Doing the
Yeah, it was
setup.
right. Doing it this way took me under 10 minutes to get from
Yeah.
taking everything from TaxDome to having an actual workable PDF that was now my, my work paper to enter things. So,
Right. Yeah, and you multiply that across 100 clients, and we're
right.
talking thousands of dollars. Yeah, right. That's a no-brainer. I'm with you. That's my favorite. I mean, by far, about Sanford Tax is the work paper
Yeah.
markup. It's great, and it's all in the cloud. And I hated, like, I hate doing the cutting and moving and organizing documents in PDF. So I'm with you. I absolutely love that about Stanford. The only thing I wish, and there's probably ways to go, but the only thing that I don't like about Stanford right now, it's not that I don't like, it's just a capability I don't have yet, is doing like Excel. So like
Okay.
Excel work papers, you still have to download. But still, like the being able to mark up the PDFs is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
Do you do your client organizer through Stanford
No.
Tax, or do you do that? Okay, so you do that in TaxDome as well?
Yeah, so I thought about what to do with that. And I ultimately decided to keep that through TaxStone because one of the selling points for all my clients is you have one login, one place to interact with me, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if I were to then say, hey, I sold you on having one place to go, but now I also need you to go to this place and do
Here's
a
a link to
just
this other
upload
thing.
documents. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and some people are like, oh, just work that into TaxStone. So that's a link. And I'm like, okay, but you're still kind of taking them somewhere else. And I'm like, I'd rather just have everything be in TaxStone. And then I can do the step of just downloading, bringing the stuff over into Stanford Tax. Plus I don't love the Stanford Tax organizer. It's
I don't know either.
at least for last year, you couldn't edit it. So it was kind of like whatever was their organizer, that's what we had to give to people. And I know on the client side, it doesn't look like this, but on my side, when I look at the organizer, it was too much like the old school, print them out of CCH or Drake or whatever and send them this thing that says like, hey, here's your W-2. Tell me all the numbers that are on your W-2. And it's like, well, I don't need you to tell me the numbers on your W-2. I can do that for you,
Right.
I think when I was working at a firm, I literally had a client call and say, why do you need me to put this information in here? Don't you have the documents? I'm like, yeah, actually we do. So
You're kind of right. Yeah.
So I didn't like that about it. So I kept it all in TaxStone.
Okay. No, and I totally agree. And this is one part of our system that I'm not in love with right now, which is so we don't use TaxStone, we use Financial Sense.
Okay.
But same challenge, right? Is like our clients, especially the clients that do bookkeeping with us, are used to doing everything in Financial Sense. And then we send them the Stanford link, and they have to go upload all the documents there. And so we get not a lot, and our admin has kind of helped with a lot of it. But there is a little bit of friction. And sometimes we'll have clients upload things into Financial Sense by mistake. And so then, we're looking in Stanford Tax. We're like, hey, where is this? And they're like, I uploaded it. And we're like, we don't, right? And so I don't love that part of our process. And so I like your idea. Because, really, it shouldn't take that long. Just drag the PDFs over.
Right.
And drop them in. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the reasons I started doing it that way too is like I had heard Jason Stats say on one of his daily pods, I think, like something along the lines of like, don't be afraid of manual processes. Like, yeah, automation's great, but don't try to automate everything because there may be a process that's actually better being a manual process than trying to automate it. I'm like, you know what? That makes sense because now, I'm not trying to retrain clients. I'm not trying to deal with, having things in two places. I have everything in one place and it's just a manual step for me to bring over, but it's not a really time consuming manual step. So what do I care?
Right. And you mentioned earlier that you've got that some clients kind of snuck in doing things on paper.
Yeah.
Do you treat those any different, both from an intake perspective and from a pricing perspective, or do you just kind of eat that admin work?
Not really. I don't really treat them any different. I might, depending on the client, I may quote a little higher if, if I know they're not going to have things in a good format, or if I know it's like there's one client I always have to drive to meet them, like, half an hour to go meet them somewhere because they don't do anything electronically. It's like, all right, that client's going to get charged a little bit extra because now I've got to, waste several hours of my day to go there and come back and whatever. So that one, may get charged a little more, but other than that, like I don't really charge much differently. And it doesn't add that much work. It's just more of a headache trying to manage it, right? Because like I'll still scan all their documents in. I'll use the Taxdome app to scan them from my phone, so that's pretty easy. But it's just more so the aspect of like, okay, how am I getting the documents? How are we getting them back to you? Like I still have a stack of documents back there from 24 that I haven't gotten back to clients yet because they didn't respond about wanting to get them back yet. So it's like, they're just sitting here,
Right.
which
Taking up
I hate.
space. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate because now they're on my desk and I don't want them there. God
Right.
forbid my house burns down. Now all their tax documents are gone with it.
Sure.
So it's just not something I want to deal with. But I've made a bunch of exceptions lately for people that just they need help. They can't find somebody else. Nobody calls them back. Like it's the sob stories, but you want to help them.
I know. I totally get that. Yeah, we've got a couple. I've gotten the shoebox full of stuff before. Yeah, so I get that. What about so walk me through then for your tax clients, how you know, how do you structure your tax services? Is it a one size fits all, or do you do the 3-tier proposals thing, or how do you have that set up?
So I'm actually working on that right now.
Okay.
So it's been a one size fits all. I quote one price. That's the price. That's kind of how I've done
It's
it.
just based on the client.
Yeah, based on what we're doing,
Each client
how
gets
many
one.
returns are there, how much stuff is on the return. I don't do like a per
Yeah.
form price or anything like that, but you're
Sure.
going to pay more if you've got Schedule C's and E's and whatever.
Of course.
And now I'm trying to do more of the 3-tier pricing, so I'm trying to figure that out for
Yeah.
this tax season.
Yeah.
What I've kind of come down to, and I was actually running it through ChatGPT last night to come up with some more stuff, but
Mhm.
I went to one of Jason Stat's lives things, the one he had in
Oh, very cool.
Boston,
Okay.
a week or so ago. And I'm using kind of what he talks about, where it's don't differentiate on services, but try to
Yeah.
differentiate on delivery. And I think a really,
Yeah.
really good example of this is, first class tickets, right? Or another one I've thought
Yeah.
of that's a good example is the fast pass at Disney, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one.
So
Yeah.
so it's like, people pay for the fast pass. They're getting the same ride. It's the same ride. All they're
Mhm.
doing is paying more money to go first.
Right.
And so part of it's going to be differentiating that way where, you know, allowing different levels to have more priority, right? If you come in the same
Right.
time as somebody else, you're going to get done first. Another thing is going to be, Calendly links, right? So, are we going to give you a link that lets you schedule within 72 hours, or are we going to give you a link that lets you schedule within 2 weeks? Like what's the difference going to be? Or we're going to give you a link at all. Maybe you don't get a link.
Right. Yeah.
I do tax return video summaries for everybody. I think ChatGPT was like, oh, you could differentiate by doing like videos for people or whatever. And I just do that for
We do it.
everybody.
Yeah, we do it for everybody
But
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
but and the other thing too, in Taxstone, there's like a pizza tracker. So there's a way to
Yeah.
basically set it up so you can have like that, where's my return stuff at, or what's the process like. And so I thought about, hey, if you go with like the middle package, then we're gonna give you access to that. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about differentiating it, not so much on what services I'm doing, but more so like, what's the process like? How's the delivery? How quick does it get done?
Yeah. No, last year we did 3-tier proposals, but they were mostly differentiated by services.
Mhm.
And so like the higher level tiers just had more stuff on them.
Yeah.
And the rates were a little high. Like when on the back end, the client doesn't see, like we don't do anything hourly, but when we'd estimate it to the extra stuff was a little bit higher margin. Um, but yeah, to Jason's point, is it just it's still more work and it clogs up capacity. And so this year, similar to you, we redid it all in the last 2 weeks and kind of went back through. And yeah, we tried to make it tied to delivery as much as possible. And then access, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the who gets a calendar link. That's exactly the thought process we've gone through the past few weeks. And do all of your renewals when you do for existing clients, when do you do renewals? Are they all happening in batch or do they happen on the anniversary?
Yeah, so they all happen. Well, I guess it depends, right? So if it's accounting services work, I mean, they're going to do renewals. Usually I do 12-month engagements, so they're going to get renewals
Okay.
kind of
Yeah,
12
that's
months from whatever they started.
Yeah.
For the tax work, it's everyone kind of gets it in bulk.
Okay.
Usually end of December, beginning of January, they'll all get
Yep.
engagement letters and stuff through Taxstone. this year I might kind of batch it a little bit just to see what happens with the 3-tier thing.
That's what we're
Um,
doing, yeah.
yeah, because like Jason brought up a good point. Like you want to kind of test it, put it out to the people you think will sign up for silver or gold first, and see what happens. Because if you get 20 people that sign up for gold, it's like, okay, well now either you need to change, what you're charging for gold for the rest of the people, or you need to like change your offering because you could end up having to do, you know, priority service for every single one of your clients. It's like, okay, well then nobody gets priority service. So
Right. No, that's very true. Yeah, we send out, we're sending them out in like test batches of like 5 or 6,
yeah.
and just kind of seeing how it goes. But so far it's been good. Generally good. And if you don't mind me asking, do you have a minimum price increase from last year to this year, or are you taking it case by case?
Yeah, for the most part, I've been trying to keep it at 5%, but I've been listening to a lot of
Okay.
people, and they're talking about like you really need to be more than that, and they're not wrong. I'll probably
Yeah.
end up doing 10% for this year.
Okay.
I mean, my prices aren't low, especially for the area I'm in to begin with, but they're not high either. Like I think my minimum for a 1040 is around $600. If you've got Schedule C and E, it's like 7 or 8. Um, my minimum for partnerships and S corps is 2,500. So
Okay.
I'm not low necessarily, and definitely in this area, I'm probably one of the more higher priced people,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't really saying much. But I think when you really think about price increases, right? Not only do things like your softwares and stuff go up, but if you try to think about this as if you had an employee doing it and not me doing it,
Yeah, exactly.
what are you going to give the employee for a raise? You're going to give them 2-3% of a raise, right? Well, if you're only increasing 5%, that leaves 2% of that increase for you, and that's before your software goes up at all.
Right.
So I think the 10% really makes more sense. But we'll kind of see how it goes over.
No, for sure. Yeah, and pricing is just so I love talking about it because you always want to compare, like, where am I? But yeah, it just depends. It varies so widely from location to the type of client, etc. So, uh, that all makes sense, and yeah, that's pretty similar to how we do it. You mentioned employees. So right now, your solo firm, is that the plan going forward, or do you plan at some point to are you thinking about hiring?
Yeah, at some point I'll need to hire.
Okay.
I definitely don't want to do the work forever myself.
Yeah.
But it's trying to get to that point where I've got enough revenue coming in that I can afford to pay the bills and also afford to pay somebody, right?
Sure.
And I think for me, like I haven't necessarily nailed down sort of like my lead generation pipeline yet to really know that I'm having X amount of people come in the door every month and know that like, hey, if
Yeah.
I brought on an employee, I could probably expect enough growth to cover them. Um, because the last thing I'd want to do is bring somebody on and then 2 months from now be like, sorry, business isn't where I
Work
thought it was going to
defeat.
be. You're gone now.
Right.
I might go the contractor route for a little bit, maybe try to get some of
Okay.
that done, help build out some processes because I'm sure I'm going to
Yeah.
have to figure out. Sorry, my dog just knocked something over there, but
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to have to figure out like what to do about processes, right? Because I know how my
Yeah.
processes work. I know what I'm doing. I don't necessarily have
Right.
it written down, but if I have to bring somebody new in, I now have to show them like this is how we do things. This is what you do.
Right.
And so having a contractor might help like do that without fully getting like SOPs built out.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I in the kind of questionnaire that you gave us beforehand, you mentioned that your hours or your work life balance is pretty strong. If how many do you how many hours do you typically work? I mean, I know it varies from busy season
Mhm.
to off season, but did you track your time last year? Do you know how many hours you worked in
Um,
25?
I've kind of sort of tracked it. So I had one of the apps on my computer called Rise that I was using to kind of
Yeah,
track things, but I haven't done a good job about like delineating what all the time is.
sure.
Um, I mean, so the hard part for me is having 2 kids. We only have one that's in full-time daycare. The other one only goes twice a week. My wife's work schedule, she's a nurse, so her work schedule is different every week.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so, it may coincide where she's working days that they're in daycare and there's only like 1 day a week I have to watch my youngest. And it may coincide where there's 2 days a week I have to watch my youngest or 3 days a week I have to watch my youngest. And,
Mm-hmm.
that means I get a lot less work done. I mean, I've definitely hit during tax season, I hit 100-hour weeks, of being on my computer and doing work. But that's definitely not the norm. And I'd say probably the hard part about growing the business now is the fact that I probably don't work a 5-day work week ever. Um,
Gotcha.
you
Okay.
know, at least not traditionally, right? Like I may,
Sure.
I may work 3 days during the week, like normal work
Yeah.
schedule for those 3 days, but then the other two, I'm getting like 2 hours of work done while the kid's napping, and then I'll get like more work done when they're both asleep. So,
Right.
it's really not a traditional, you know, work style there. But the nice thing is that I have the flexibility to be able to do that, right? We don't have to
Exactly.
force ourselves into having full-time daycare now for the second one because daycare is super expensive. And so I have that flexibility where I can say, hey, I'm not going to work on the days that he's home and I'll just work at night or like get a little bit of work done while he's, napping or something.
No, exactly. I mean that for me and like I was saying earlier, your episode number 5, all 4 of the previous 4 guests have said the same thing. Have all every single one, every single person we've talked to has said, obviously that the money's important too.
Yeah.
But everybody's primary motivation has been lifestyle and balance and maybe not just flexibility, just being able to control, like you said earlier, it's not necessarily that you're trying to work less, but just being able to control the when you work to fit it around your life.
Right.
No, I think that's super cool, and I think that's one of the, at least for me, that's been one of the biggest motivators to keep doing this and keep doing your own thing is just
Yeah.
being in control and not having your time dictated. So,
Yeah. I mean, same thing, right? So like if I look at when I lost that subcontracting work, right? One of the thoughts
Yeah.
that go through your head when you lose that is like, all right, well now do I go work for a firm and get consistent money and whatever? Because now I've lost
Right.
this, I've got to make it up. And it's like, well, I'm not gonna get this lifestyle working at a firm. I'm gonna have to first of all probably drive somewhere these days. And I don't
Yep.
live, I live like probably 20 or 30 minutes from the closest city, so like I'm gonna have to drive.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to get, to not put the kids in full-time daycare. I'm not going to be able to, if
Right.
they're sick one day, it's going to be harder for me to say, hey, I'm not going into work today. Right now I can say, yeah, I just won't work. They're sick today. I'm going to hang out with the kids and then I'll work at night.
Right.
But you don't get that if you go work for somebody. And that's a big deciding factor of like, all right, just keep pushing through it, find other work to make it up and, keep going.
No, of course. And to your point, the traditional accounting for like that position is going to be there at least for the foreseeable future, right? Like
Right.
there's no shortage of them. Yeah, I think we're just at such a uniquely great time to be kind of doing this and doing the small firm thing. Yeah, very cool. And like I said, it's been a common thread across everybody we've talked to. And I think there's something to that. Well, cool. I really appreciate you kind of sharing your processes and kind of how you run your practice. As we kind of move towards wrapping up, we've got 5 questions that we ask every single guest at the end of the show. So we'll kind of go through those, and just kind of see what your responses are. So our first question is, what is your favorite business book, or do you have one?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, it's not really a business book, but I just finished reading Atomic Habits again. I think that's a really good book.
It's a great book.
It's not, I guess it's not a traditional business book, but it really helps you think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
yeah, how to get 1% better every day and how to sort of string together the things that you're doing to form
Yep.
a good habit. So I'd say right now probably that.
That's a great one. I could probably use a reread of it. That's one of those that when at least I remember from the first time reading is it all like makes sense, but it's one of those books that I think it's good to, you need to be reminded more than you need to be taught kind of things. Yeah, that's a great book. Right on. That's Jason Clear, I think, is the
Yeah.
title. Yeah,
James
okay.
James Clear maybe.
James Clear. James
yeah.
Clear. James Clear. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Cool. And what about and I think I might know the answer, but what is one system or tool that you couldn't run your firm without?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's for sure TaxDome. I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally everything's on it. So if I didn't have that,
Yeah.
I'd have to put everything back together.
Yeah. And you've used Taxstone from the start, you said.
Yep. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
day one. I found they
Right.
were back then they would build themselves as an all-in-one, and they were the only one that
Mhm.
had automations for your processes. Everyone has them now. In fact, all of them are very similar now. All these practice management softwares, but back then they were the only ones that really had pipeline automations, and that was a big thing for me.
Not to sidetrack us, but I neglected to ask it. Does Taxstone work well for your bookkeeping folks, or do you use something else to manage the bookkeeping workflows?
So yeah, I mean the workflows wise, it works great. They just started doing some similar kind of like an Uncat does, where you can have transactions be sent to the clients. They kind of just
Yeah.
started doing something like that. Still a little more of a
Okay, I see
manual
it.
process than an Uncat, but yeah, it's getting better for the bookkeeping. But as far as processes go, it works great.
Yeah, that in financial sense, it's called like recap, but yeah,
Mhm.
that being able to push transactions to the client, that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, that's really I mean, I don't know if you've demoed or played with Double or Keeper or whatever it's called
yeah,
now. But they have some really cool functionalities. But yeah, for us, the primary one is just being able to send transactions without having to export some nasty Excel. So
right.
okay, right on. Okay. Well, question number 3: what events or conferences are you planning to attend in the next year, if any?
Um, yeah. So, I believe Jason Stats is going to do more of those small regional kind of things. So I'm planning on going to any one of those he does. I would love to make it out to like an AICPA engage. It's just been tough for me with the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To try to get to those, I'd love to get to like a big conference like that. And then I'm going to try to attend some local conferences around here. There's an accounting one called the MAP conference put on by Mass CPAs and Connecticut CPAs.
Okay.
That's usually in November. I didn't get to go this year just because of scheduling, but that's one I like going to. It's really good for accounting firms of any size to really one network with other accounting firms, but also learn about like practice management stuff and kind of where the industry is with that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. And what about what are your hobbies? What outside of accounting and hanging out with the kiddos? What do you do for fun?
That's a tough one because I don't do a lot of things other than work and hang out with the kids these days.
That's fair. It's a phase of life. I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, like lately, I play video games with some of the guys from the BNI group. We'll hop on any night my wife's working. We'll hop on and play games. So that's pretty much the main thing I do nowadays, I guess, outside of the kids and work.
Yeah. What do you play?
Call of Duty mainly, Warzone.
Okay. Hell yeah. Staying on the sticks. We'll
That's
see.
it.
What what about where can people go to connect with you or find out more about you?
Yeah. Social media wise, I'm on LinkedIn. I was more involved in like Twitter or X, but I don't do that so much anymore. But LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. If you're a member of Realize or Logan Graph's Counter, I'm in both of those. And
Okay.
the Discord group too. I mean, you can find me in there pretty much every day. So
Yeah. Well, perfect. Well, Ryan, sweet. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat. Had a lot of fun learning about your business, and I really appreciate your openness and willingness to share. So thank you so much.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I'll be looking forward to catching you. And now that I've put two and two together, I'll be looking forward to catching you in the Discord.
Sounds great.
Well, that's our episode with Ryan Elblein. Again, I had a great time talking to Ryan. I don't know what from the outside looking in. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting conversation you guys had. I think that it was pretty technical with the systems that he was doing, and I think that you guys touched on a lot of interesting parts of the tax side of the business.
Yeah, no, I loved him. Dude, there's always more stuff that I want to talk about than there is time. So that just means we'll have to have Ryan back on maybe after tax season. But I loved his work-life balance stuff. Well, I mean, like I said in the intro, and I love learning. I love learning people. I love hearing people's stories as how they got into or in the firm. I
Yeah.
really did love his nugget about contracting for his prior employer. I mean, just such an easy, I mean, not easy, right? Because I don't want to minimize it. I mean, it is scary and it is stressful when you're getting started, for sure. But a pretty straightforward way to maybe reduce some of those barriers to entry and some of that stress. So I really love that. I thought that was a golden nugget for anybody listening who's thinking about who might be thinking about going out and doing their own thing.
Yeah, and he kind of had that going in like a hybrid sort of system for a while before he switched over full time to his own entity. So
yeah, just such a good lesson of like he didn't just quit his job
and fully
YOLO
commit
it
to
overnight. Yeah, overnight and just like he did it part time for like 2 years before he got to the point where he was ready to go. And yeah, I think that's such a great. And now he's reaping the benefits of it, working. Like you said, I think to quote. I don't want to misquote him, but says he hardly works a regular 5-hour week or 5-day work week.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
And
so, anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just thought it was interesting that when you guys got into the BNI stuff, it seems like that had been the majority of sort of his client intake system was from that, which kind of contrasts a lot with at least, I mean, you're the sales side of it, but most of our client sales seem to come from either referrals or just organic sort of word of mouth.
Yeah, no, that's true. But we definitely got our start with BNI and some of the other and some similar in-person networking events. And yeah, while we don't do them as much anymore, they were definitely a solid springboard for us just to build a little bit of momentum and get your name out there and just talk to people in person and build some relationships. I thought the BNI thing was also just a good nugget for anybody listening who's struggling getting clients or looking to get started with building out their own client list. So, well, cool. All in all, great interview. Thanks again to Ryan for coming on the show. And for anybody, for those of you listening, if you haven't already, do us a favor, drop us a comment, give us some feedback, give us a like, or share this with somebody else who's running an accounting firm and can benefit from it. And if you'd be interested coming on the show, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, guest application will be in the description.
Yeah, we'll drop a link to it and leave in the show notes. So cool. Anything else, Matt?
Nope. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Well, sweet. Well, dude, have a great Christmas, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. See you on the next one.